So many of you in here, I bet, have experienced one of the reasons that Louisville is such a great place to live. And that's some of the pictures we have on the screen. We have an abundance of surface water. We have water in our backyards, we have water sometimes in our front yards, we have water on our side yards, we have waters in the parks, we have waters in ponds and lakes, and we have the Ohio River. So we have all this water, and you may have even experienced some of the different photos, the activities that you can do in that water that we have. But what you may not have experienced or may not know is that there's a lot of places at certain times where sewers will overflow when they get too much water in them, and so that debris that's in a sewer goes into those creeks and the water bodies that we enjoy. You might not know it, you might not see it, it might not even be raining for you to know that. And so one of the things we want to make sure as we go about the community is that everybody understands that, because there's bacteria in that water that if you come in contact with it and you have not washed your hands with warm soapy water, that could make you or a loved one sick. And so we want to make sure that you understand that, and so that you can take the precautions against that. Because it could be in the stream, it can be in the street, sometimes you see these, sometimes you don't see them where they're happening. But it all ends up in our water bodies, in our waterways. And so it's in the form of litter, it's in the form of human waste and debris that comes out of the sewers, and things that we may not even know that's happening, but you see the end result of that. And so we're here to talk about that. We're going to talk about why did these sewers overflow in the first place? Because if you didn't know that it was happening, your next question should be, well, why in the world aren't you doing something about that? And we are, and so we're here to then share with you what is MSD doing to help with that. But then we're also here to share what can you do to help us help the problem, because MSD alone can't do everything that needs to be done to take care of the system, because a lot of it happens on the side of the sewer that we don't own or maintain. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through. Now, do you remember the days of Smokey the Bear? And do your part, help prevent forest fires? Well, this is Kid Win, and he is our mascot that's helping us kind of spread that word too, of help us clean up our waterways. And so he's going to show up from time to time just as a way to break up this presentation, so you're not sitting there listening to me talk and wondering when you can get out of here, okay? And so as he shows up, you've got a blue sheet of paper, and so there's just some information. I'm going to be sharing information, a lot of information, and there are about 6 things that's really important that we'd like for you to take home with you, and that information to glean out of this presentation. And so those are the answers that we'll be working through on that paper. This is the first time we've done this. Kind of like the video and some of the other things, we'd like your feedback. Do you like it? Do you not like it? So just kind of write that on that survey when the presentation's done. So if we want to answer the question of why do sewer overflows occur, we have to go all the way back before Louisville was settled, when it was just pure land. Rain falls, rain hits the land, rain runs across the land, it goes to the creek. So as Louisville develops, and this is a real picture from the 1800s in Louisville, you get a lot of people crowded in a small place. Waste accumulates. That waste could be human waste, that could be pet waste, that could be livestock waste, that could be commercial waste, but it's waste. And in the early days, they didn't understand necessarily what that would cause. We knew later it would cause disease and sickness, but at the time, the only place to put it was outside the door. And so that's what they did. So as we go back to that pristine condition that's no longer pristine, so you have rain that falls on that waste that's out in the street or in the streets, and all of that's going to get carried out into the water bodies. So, but it's going to run across the grass and the vegetation that's there, and those pollutants are, for the most part, going to be stripped out. This is a picture from 1850 where sewers began to be developed. There was only 43,000 people in the city of Louisville at that time, and we're sitting at about 750,000. So this is back, they planned for growth. They made some really, really, really big sewers, but really what they did was take the existing creeks that were already there and encase them in concrete or whatever they could find. So now here's the situation. You have this picture that you can see of the 1800s where you have the garbage out on the streets. It rains on top of that garbage. We've connected it and gotten it away from people, but now it's going out into the water bodies more directly. It's not filtered, it's not running through grass, it's not running through vegetation. It is literally running from the door to what was the creek, now is a pipe, and it's going straight out to Beargrass Creek or the Ohio River. So this was back when dilution was the solution. Get it away from the people and get it out to the water body, and it'll take care of the rest. So here's a picture of some of those systems. Some of them very crude. They just dug out the drainage ditch and put something on top of it so they could build on top. And theirs very sophisticated, where they built a huge sewer. We still use this sewer, by the way. It's in great shape. This was obviously before it had any water in it, and these folks were able to stand in there in their suits and ties. But this sewer, on an average day, won't run as high as those folks that are in there, but you can see how big it is. It's 27 feet tall by 17 feet wide. It's huge. So fast forward some more, in the 1860s, the Louisville Water Company got running water into homes and businesses. So now you have a situation where you've got a lot of fresh water coming in very fast, which means a lot of waste is being developed very fast, and so you've got to find a way to get that waste out of the house. So the chamber pots that they had and the waste disposal methods, they're not working. So they had to figure out, how do you get that waste away from the people faster? Well, remember, there's these big pipes that were the streams that are in the streets or behind the houses that are connected to what were the streams that are now bigger pipes that are going straight to Beargrass Creek or the river. They just connected it to that pipe, and so now you had not only stormwater going when it rained, but you had waste from homes and businesses going out to Beargrass Creek and the Ohio River every day. That was the method that was used before treatment. So we know that getting running water to the houses and getting sewers in the ground were good for public health, because we show where typhoid rates, disease, went down when that occurred. But we're still before the time of wastewater treatment. So in 1948, the Federal Water Pollution Control Act mandated that entities, cities, put in wastewater treatment. So it took 10 years from that mandate for the city of Louisville to build and put into operation our first wastewater treatment plant, which we at the time called Fort Southworth, which is still in operation. It's called Morris Foreman. So go back then, you've got the water that falls on the ground when it rains, plus you've also got the waste that's going into the pipes every day. So those pipes are going to fill up, because they knew back when they built these pipes, they would never build a system large enough to treat all of the stormwater and all of the wastewater. So they sized it for all of the wastewater and as much as the stormwater as they could treat at the time. So the water comes in, hits the ground, goes into these pipes, gets in here, comes into the big pipe that used to be a stream that went out to the river or Beargrass Creek. And so now, where it used to go straight out, since the treatment plant is there, they put these weirs in the old stream that cannot go all the way to the top because there's too much water in that pipe when it rains. They put a pipe or an opening in the bottom of that old stream bed that's now a pipe and drop that flow in on a dry basis. Every day it comes in, it goes to the treatment plant, it gets treated, and it comes out of the treatment plant. When it rains, there's more water in here than can get in this smaller pipe, and so the rest of it goes out to Beargrass Creek or the Ohio River. That's how sewer overflows first came to be in Louisville. It's like this in every river city east of the Mississippi. They all had built and developed the same way, and they all developed further because that was the technology of the day. This is a picture of one of those CSOs on the South Fork of Beargrass Creek. This is a very large one. Up in the top corner is a very small one. There's about 101 locations where this happens, either along the Ohio River or in the Three Forks of Beargrass Creek today. Now, development started in the city of Louisville and worked its way out. So picture for me the Watterson Expressway, I-264, as the differentiating line of in 1955 where development had worked its way out. In 1955, the state of Kentucky said you can no longer build those sewers where all the drainage and all the sanitary is in the same pipe, because we've learned that that's not the correct technology to use. And so what they said is that we had to do it separately. So in the picture you see a separate storm sewer system, could be a pipe, could be a channel or a ditch in the yard, and a separate sewer pipe. And theoretically, they're supposed to be separate. But what we have found, everything wears out with time. And the sewers that were originally put in were made of clay, terracotta type material. So if you picture pots that you plant in, terracotta pots, when they dry out, they will crack, and as the roots of that plant grow bigger, they will create openings, and if you barely nudge that pot and it falls over, it's going to break. Well, the same thing happens underground with the pipes that were put in as the technology of the day that was used. We're slowly lining through those pipes and getting rid of those, but what we found is that they will crack, that as development occurs, you'll have stormwater catch basins that will be connected to the stormwater or to the sanitary line instead of the stormwater line. That manhole barrel that is the connecting point, it will also over time crack as ground freezes and thaws, and we have movement in the ground just as you go through the seasons, and over time that just is something that happens. And then you have roots, and so particularly in the summer when it's dry and there's not a lot of rain and water for the roots, they're going to seek a nutrient source. And so if they find the smallest crack in that pipe or that manhole, they're going to seek that, and they're going to grow into that, and they're going to grow larger, and they're going to make that crack larger, and it's just a process that continues. So those are things on the public side of the system, or the right-of-way line, that line where MSD will maintain up to, versus what we're getting ready to talk about, what is the private side of that line. So let's look at that. There's that right-of-way line where probably there's a clean-out on your property, whether it's a residential home or a business commercial property. That clean-out is pretty much the differentiating line between the public side and the private side. The same types of things can happen on that private side where, and in this case a little bit different, a downspout, sometimes in the past the downspout that takes the rain off the roof, instead of connecting that out onto the ground and letting it run across the grass, it can be improperly connected to the sanitary sewer, so that's taking stormwater and putting it in the sanitary sewer. Or you could have a groundwater sump pump that is protecting your basement from groundwater. It's okay to have a groundwater sump pump, it's just we have to make sure it goes to the right place. And so we need to make sure that groundwater sump pump is not pumping into the sanitary sewer. It needs to go out onto the ground or into the stormwater system. You could have an area drain, an area that's a part of your grass or a parking lot that could be taking that area, and again, instead of taking it to the stormwater system, putting it in the sanitary sewer. And then that private line that comes out of the home or the business up into the right-of-way line, that is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain that line. So it can also, it's made of the same material. The older ones are made of clay. They can crack, they can get roots in there, they can break. Sometimes you'll find this out the hard way and have a backup into your building, your home, and a plumber will come out and tell you that's on your side. Sometimes you may not know that that's going on until there is a problem that happens. Now, we do have a program that will help the homeowner or the property owner with the maintenance of that private line. You can get information today from our customer service representatives the sewer line replacement program, where we will finance the fix of that line to make sure that that line is in good operating condition. So when you have these problems in the line, mostly in the private side of the line, what you're going to see a lot of times when you have these direct sources of storm water, this clean water that's getting into the sanitary sewer, it's going to manifest itself in these overflows, okay? And so you're going to see them that they kind of bubble up in the streets, because that street is coming straight from the homes that are connected to that. So here's our first check-in point. So on your little blue sheet, it says MSD's authority to perform sewer maintenance extends to the right-of-way line. And so that's important for you to take away, to understand that point from the house or the building to that right-of-way line is the property owner responsibility to maintain. MSD is going to take over from the right-of-way line out for the rest of the system. So let's move on. Here's something you probably didn't know unless you've been to one of these meetings before or you've talked to somebody who has, because I didn't know until I started working at MSD and learning how all of this worked together, is that on these lines that are running full when it's raining because of all these sources of stormwater, when we run a washing machine or a dishwasher, which is a large source of water, it is dirty, and it's going into the right place, which is the sewer. But if we're running those while it's raining, we're contributing to too much flow in the sewer that's probably overflowing somewhere else. So what we're asking folks to do is, if you can, sometimes you can choose to not. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to run the washing machine. You have to run the dishwasher. But if you can wait till it stops raining to run that dishwasher or run a load of laundry, we're asking you to do that until it stops raining, so that that helps the system get back down to operating levels, and so we're not causing or contributing to those overflows. Because sometimes those overflows are your neighbor's basement or your basement, and we want to make sure that that's not happening. And a lot where that's coming from and where that's going to be seen the most, when those sewers are overflowing, it could be a backup. That's a direct impact to public health, and we're really trying to get the word out to help us stop that from happening. So here's another checking point. So one of the things we want to make sure that, as a takeaway, is that we can avoid, if possible, running our dishwashers and our washing machines when it's raining. Now, please note, I'm not asking you to not take a shower, not take a bath, not do a load of dishes in the sink, but to refrain from those large sources of water if we can do that. Here's another thing I bet you don't know, and you'll never know the impacts of this until something bad happens. But when we flush things down the toilet that don't belong in the toilet, that belong in the trash can, they find their way very strategically around the impeller of a sanitary pump station. And when dental floss and hair from brushes and Q-tips and flushable wipes that are not flushable, regardless of what the package says, then they're going to wrap themselves around a pump, an impeller of a pump, and when it gets so much wrapped around it, it's going to stop pumping. So imagine when a sanitary pump station that's meant to keep sewage moving downstream away from the house, when that stops pumping, bad things happen. And bad things result in basements that back up. And so we want to prevent those from happening. We can't stop that. We can only react to when it happens, because we don't know where that source is coming from. So we're asking everybody, every chance we get, if it belongs in the trash, throw it in the trash. Don't flush it down the toilet. Now, I'm sure you've heard all about fats and oils and greases and what to do after you cook. We've been talking about this for a long time. You know, that rumor used to be if you turned the hot water on the sink long enough and got it really hot, and then you could pour your grease down the drain and it would go away. Well, if you're lucky, it might leave your sink. It might even leave your house. But it probably isn't going to get very far before it congeals. And when everybody's doing that, or it really doesn't take a lot of people, it's going to fill an 8-inch sewer that's out in the street pretty fast. And it's going to be like a pump station that stops pumping. It's a sewer pipe that stops flowing. And again, the same result. We have basements that back up and overflows that happen. So what we're asking people is, don't use your garbage disposal. Don't put it down the sink. Let it congeal. take a napkin, take a paper towel, take all food, all sources. If you're not composting it, put it in the trash. Because it's going to find itself in the sewer, it's going to bind up, and it's going to create a concrete-like substance, as you can see here, and it's going to cause backups. Again, we can't stop this from happening. We can only react to it after it happens, and it's a bad thing. So we need your help going through this particular situation. So here's a check-in point. So it says, what do we do with dental floss, hair, and those wipes that even though they say they're flushable, put it in the trash, don't flush it. Now this is an extreme picture of a sanitary sewer overflow. This is out in the separate sanitary sewer system on a creek, something that actually happened, and this is one of the worst things is when it rains a whole lot and all of those things are going on and you have this big flush of sewage and stormwater that's trying to get to the same place. And a lot of times we're going to see that when it's raining that way, that there's a lot of sump pumps that are pumping groundwater, protecting basements, but instead of putting it on the ground or putting it into the stormwater system, those sump pumps are going straight into the sanitary sewer. That sanitary sewer is not sized to take that. It's sized to take waste from homes and buildings only. And so when we've got sump pumps in our basements or on our foundations that are pumping away and pumping into the sewer, that's what's causing those massive overflows, at least 50% of it. And so, again, we've got a program, the plumbing modification program. We'll disconnect it. We'll pay for the disconnection to help with that. But we've got to have your help to identify that. And so you can get that information. Again, the customer service desk can give you that information. We'll walk you through the process. We'll pay to have it disconnected, but we need you to help and identify where that might be. And then downspouts. So downspout is in the summertime, it's a free source of water that's clean, that you can use to water your gardens, to water your yard, that are hoping isn't going into the sanitary system again. It's like a sump pump that we would rather you turn that out onto the ground, into the grass, away from your foundation, or turn it into a rain garden, or put it into a rain barrel. And again, we've got information on that, but it's just a way to keep more stormwater that's coming off that roof, and that is an amazing amount of water that during a good rain is going to go into the sewer system if we can't keep it on the surface. So here's question number 4. FOG, what does FOG stand for? And so it's fats, oils, and grease. So it's any food, basically, that you're cooking with or that is residual after you've cooked and eaten. And we're asking that you put it in the trash. Don't dispose of it down the drain. So now we're coming to a point of, we've talked about overflows, we've talked about some of the things that cause these overflows, and what this map shows you is where are they. There's a lot of dots on this map, and the dots on this map represent all the different locations in Jefferson County and a little in Oldham County that overflows occur on a pretty consistent basis when it rains. The blue dots in this area here, that's the combined sewer system. So those are those first overflows that were built before wastewater treatment. The dots outside here, those are separate sanitary sewer overflows. Those are those systems that were built separate stormwater, separate sanitary system, but sometimes there's too much stormwater in that sanitary system from all the different sources. And so what this map represents is that there is no area in Jefferson County that's not subject to sewer overflows. So we have a community-wide problem that's going to require a community-wide solution. And we're taking this message all across the community, the same message to say, help us take care of this situation so that we have a safer place to be. So a little bit more of the history of how things have progressed. From the 1980s through 2005, MSD was focused primarily on getting rid of sources of pollution that were occurring every day. And as development occurred, and as development moved out from the core of the city, it occurred in pockets. And so there were these what we call package treatment plants or small treatment plants. They were not operated by MSD. or the commissioners of sewage at the time. They were operated by the developer of that subdivision, and the state asked MSD to take those out of service because we could do a better job of operating those, keeping them in good operating condition, and ultimately eliminating those. And so we spent several years, as you can see, doing that, acquiring those, fixing what we could, and ultimately taking them offline and connecting them to the municipal system that's in place today. We were doing that as we were also addressing the sanitary overflow situation that was going on. But EPA came in and said, we recognize what you're doing, and it's a good thing, but you're not working on those other problems of pollution, those overflows, fast enough. And what they said is, we want you to now focus on that. And so we're going to put that in an order under federal court with stipulated penalties and dates that you have to complete. And that's where our consent decree came from that says MSD for the city of Louisville will address all of these overflows that we're looking at, and here's the time frame that which you will do that. And so in 2009, that federal order was adopted by the federal judge here in Jefferson County, and what it said is those areas in the combined sewer system, those early overflows, the work has to be done by 2020, the end of 2020, and the separate system, those further out in the county, that work has to be done by 2024. So we're halfway through that program. We're continuing to do the work. We're continuing to design and to build and to spread the message of here's what the problem is and how we can address that together. So in terms of what is being done on the public side, there's a whole suite of projects, some of which in the second presentation tonight we'll talk to you about Camp Taylor specifically, the projects that are being done in the Camp Taylor neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhood on the Nightingale Pump Station in particular to help pump stations or to help the overflows in that area. But what we need you to understand is this is part of a larger solution, and so we want you to understand what that larger solution is. And so there's lots of pipes going in. There's lots of pump stations being enlarged. There's treatment plants that are being enlarged. There's work that are being done for downspouts and sump pumps all across the county, just like Camp Taylor, so that we can do this collectively across the county. Now what you see here, it appears to be maybe a house that's on fire. There looks to be smoke coming out of that downspout. You may have seen this happening in the Camp Taylor neighborhood. This is actually smoke coming out of the sewer, where we test the sewer to see where the connections are or to see where the openings are to the surface. So what you see here is on a dry day in this particular neighborhood that we were testing those sewers to see where the leaks are. So we put, when the sewer levels are low, it's not raining, it hasn't rained, there's not a lot of water in there, we'll fill those with smoke and we'll see where that smoke comes out. So in this case, it showed us that particular home downspout was connected to the sanitary sewer. So we're able to tell the homeowner, we're able to work with them to put them through the program to help get that connected properly either onto the ground or into the stormwater system. So just as a check-in point, we're halfway through the program. We're about 51% complete. We're running right at budget, actually a little bit below budget, which is a good place to be halfway through the program. So we're always checking that to see where we are on that federally mandated schedule. So just in terms of where we've been working, because we showed there's a countywide problem of overflows and there is only so much money that can be spent at one time because of how it's paid for, and the schedule to accommodate everything by the end of 2024, we've been working in certain areas very systematically to make sure that we could take care of things in a proper order. That you work upstream so that you start at the top and work through the bottom of a particular area, or you work in some cases in areas where EPA tells you to go work first. And so we've been doing that in areas of Beechwood Village, in Heights Point, Highgate Springs, where the majority of the overflow volume and occurrences were occurring. And so that's where they told us to go work first. And so we finished that work in about 2012. We've been continuing to work through. We've been doing some work in Camp Taylor. We're going to tell you where we are on that. We're continuing to work in the areas of J-Town and Prospect because there are 6 treatment plants. Some of those older original treatment plants that were built that are in that older age of plants that are failing, and they wanted us to remove those by a certain date. We're doing that. Those will be finished by the end of 2015. By the end of 2015, there will only be 5 treatment plants that are run by MSD in Jefferson County. And so that's huge because we started at about 300. So what that does, every time you eliminate one of those, you reduce an everyday source of pollution into those creeks that we like to recreate in. So here's, in terms of progress, how to show the progress that we've made. So in terms of overflow locations, there's over 200 SSO locations. These are not the combined sewer overflows in the older part of the system. These are the separate sanitary sewer in the separate stormwater sanitary system. We started at about 225, and you can see how that number slowly goes down. Now, every project takes about 2 years, 2 to 3 years on average to just construct. Another year to 2 years to design. So the process is slow. When you start that in 2007, you can see how we're slowly building that out, where we're moving these projects out, and so those numbers will start to come down. So here's a check-in point. This is question number 5. It says sump pumps should discharge to the ground or to a stormwater system and not into the sanitary system. We are asking you to check. If you have a sump pump, check and see where it's going. If you don't know, if you know you have one and you don't know where that's going, if that hasn't been checked out, call MSD at that number and we'll work through that process with you and help you get that reconnected out into the stormwater system. Okay, we can't talk about improvements without talking about the money that it's going to take to correct that. And sometimes there's a misconception about where the money to pay for the corrections comes from. The money to pay for the corrections comes from those of us that live in Jefferson County. When we get our water bill every other month, there is a sewer portion of that. And that sewer portion is where the money comes from to pay for the improvements that this is paying. MSD by itself, that's where the money comes from. And so what we look at is how do we put these projects together in a way and work through it systematically that the money is there to pay. We borrow some of that too, but we ultimately pay the borrowing back with the money that comes from the sewer rates. So what this chart shows you is Louisville is here. And so it shows you all of these are cities around us or in the region that have these same federal orders with sanitary sewer overflows that the federal government has come in and mandated that they be corrected. And what it shows is what is the cost per mile of sewer. Any amount of money is too much. We understand that. But what we went and looked at is where are we on that scale? And so what this shows is the cost to correct the problems in Louisville is almost a third less than any of the surrounding cities per sewer mile. So what that tells us is, in terms of what we're doing, we want to, I guess, convey to you that we're being very economical. We're trying to do what's absolutely necessary to do. And that's why when we say we need your help to fix all of that, it's not going to make all of that go away. Because as we're still doing those other things we've talked about, that's still flow that has to be dealt with. And so we need your help to be able to keep the rates down and to be able to meet the order as most cost effectively as possible. Now this is the actual rates. And this again shows rates per month, realizing that we pay every 2 months. So if you cut that in half, it's about $35 a month as it's showing on here. And you can see we're about in the middle in terms of where all the other rates are around us. And so not that that changes anything, it just kind of shows you sometimes we need to see where we are in relation to others to understand what that means. We do have a program, a senior citizen discount program, that if you meet the eligibility requirements that you see on the screen, that we can help defray some of the costs monthly of the sewer bill. And you can get that information again out of the customer relations table, or you can call us and we can send that information to you and work with you through that process. So let's go back to where we started. So this is This was the starting point. This was our ancestors. This is how they were living. This is the disease that they dealt with. So when we look at where we are, we've come a long way. We've made a lot of improvements. The sanitary situation is light years ahead of what it used to be, but we still have problems. We've talked about what we're doing on the public side. There is a cost associated with that. It's about $850 million that it's going to cost to fix the problems on the public side of the system, from the right-of-way line down to the treatment plants, is that part we're talking about that cost is associated with. And then some of the other things that we talked about is there's still openings in the system, there's still defects in the system that are causing those overflows that are occurring on the private side of that right-of-way line, where we've asked for your help in going forward to partner. So the last question on the little blue sheet is question number 6. It says, to make good use of fresh, clean water, we can use rain barrels and rain gardens. And we have information, if you'd like to get information about that, at the customer relations table. There's more information on that you can use to incorporate that on your property. You use them in the summer. The rain barrels are only for the summer. They're not to be used in the winter because they will crack and break. So it's a summertime usage. So as we look at where we are and working together to fix this problem that we have, you've got this. We want you to take it home. We want you, on the back side of that, some information, some phone numbers to call if you want to get more information, if you experience a problem, so it's information that you can have. If you see a sewer overflow, it could be in a creek, it could be in the street, it could be along the property line, please call us. Call us at this number that you see on the screen, because sometimes you might be the first person to see it, and as soon as we become aware that that's happening, we're going to make sure that we send somebody out there to address that. Can we hold your question? There is a website that you can go to. It's also on that blue sheet that you can get other information, anything that we talked about. There's more information there. It'll take you to different places and different links. I've shared a lot of information with you. We're going to have time for questions at the end. If you could write your questions down on the little sheet of paper and hold them up, staff's going to come get those. We want to make sure that for the taping of this, that we're being, I guess, cognizant of those that will be watching over the tape. We want to make sure they can hear the questions and get the answers, and so that's why we want to write them down and be able to read them and answer them all at one time. So at that point, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to change microphones. If you want to take a break to write that down and start holding those up, we'll start collecting those and we'll start distributing those so we can answer them.
Hello. I know everybody is probably really wanting to get out of here, so in an effort to keep things moving, my name is John Leckley, and I'll be presenting the next 2 presentations. Just real quick, I'm going to try to go through this and then get done in a time where I'm done by 7, and then we can go through some of the questions. The first presentation I'm going to talk about is the Camp Taylor sanitary sewer improvements and the information going out there. Some of this information maybe you've heard before, but hopefully there'll be some new information, and we definitely have some information on the progress. At any time, after this presentation, if you would like, we do have staff in the back of the room. If you haven't already talked with staff, then after the presentation, you can go talk to staff specific issues relating to your project or questions you may have as far as some of the work that's going on in the area. So real quick, as I stated, I'm going to give a quick background of the project and why we're out here. The approach we're taking today to try to help resolve the issues in the area, and then ultimately, as with all our projects, we're here to get public input and to communicate with everybody what's going on. So real quick, the project background. Camp Taylor was put in place in the early 1900s as a U.S. Army training facility. A lot of that goes as the barracks, as everybody's familiar with that is. Well, the way they were put in with 6-inch sewer lines that served the entire barracks. Today, typical sewer lines, well, the minimum sewer line is 8-inch diameter. So it started off with sewers that were undersized and without the capacity. And then, probably the next 30 to 40 years, there was a lot of post-Army development that went out in the area that was not regulated, and there was a lot of activities that went on. And part of that is that there wasn't any true design requirements followed. So as a result, we were left with a lot of situations. Sewers under homes, multiple sewer crossings. There's a lot of situations to where you have one property service connections, which is 6-inch diameter, that is shared by 3 or 4 or more homes, so the capacities aren't there. So to begin with, you don't have the design situation, so you don't have the capacity in the sewer that you should have. And then, with the problems with the sewers that I'll get a little bit later, and the groundwater and the rainwater getting into, that just made the problem worse. And then once we took over the system, the maintenance was very difficult due to the existing sewer conditions and then also the lack of any construction plans. So we had to do our homework at first. I had several meetings with, I think several of you got here when we did the SSES project. That was a sanitary sewer evaluation study. And basically what that is that it served two folds. It allowed us to go in, and whether we did CCTV, we put a camera in the sewers, we did smoke testing, dye testing, wet weather inspections. We also did private property inspections. That allowed us to go in and find all the problems and defects in the area, and allowed us to prepare ourselves so that we can move forward. And just real quick, these are some pictures. A lot of times people ask me, how do you know? And Angela talked about, this is a picture of a sump pump. We use dye tests, for example, for sump pumps. So this is a picture of a sump pump that's properly connected to the roadside drainage. It came out. This is a sump pump that went into, this is actually a sewer manhole. So this is some of the methods we can use to confirm whether a person's sump pump is tied into the sewer or not. And then this is just another example of, this was an area, this is actually in the Camptail area to where a downspout smoke tested, so we know that it's in the system. One of the first things when we were doing the SSES, we discovered and we realized is we need to expand the area. We always talk about areas 1 and 2 is actually Camp Taylor, but the area 3, Prestonia, Ottoman Park, 4 and 5, and some of those areas, all those sewers flow through the Camp Taylor interceptor through the area. So it didn't make any sense for us to go in and make all the improvements to the immediate Camp Taylor areas, areas 1 and 2, and not do the surrounding areas. For example, once we got into area 3, we found over confirmed 180 homes that had their downspouts connected. So if we didn't go in and address all the areas, we wouldn't help ultimately with the Camp Taylor. So the SSES recommendations gave us our checklist of what we needed to do. We needed to work with the neighborhood as much as possible to connect downspouts and sump pumps. We need to look at existing area drains and yard drains. As I stated, as part of the development, it just appeared to us that there was a lot of situations to where if a neighborhood corner had a drainage problem, a catch basin was put in place and tied directly into sewer to get it out of sight. Review existing drainage system. Any of these disconnections we want to do, if necessary, we want to make sure when we do these disconnections, downspouts, the catch basins, we don't cause drainage problems in the area. Rehabilitate or replace sanitary sewers in the area. And then a commitment we made is that we would abandon anything located under structures. So our approach, as I stated, we have 4 approaches. We're going to go out there and we're going to disconnect and find all those drainage systems, the catch basins, yard drains, rehab sewers, sewer replacement, and then some areas of accommodation. And ultimately, we want to get rid of this. This is that clay sewer Angela was talking about, and this is predominantly what's in the area. And this is not an uncommon photo of typical sewer, what it looks like throughout the area. It's pretty broken up. So our first approach was the 19 area yard drains. You may have seen us out in the neighborhood, and this is all through areas 2 through 5. We, to date, have disconnected 14 of those catch basins or area yard drains that was sending roadside drainage or area drainage into the sewers. Areas 3, 4, and 5, those are the areas that they're older sewers, so they are actually designed and put in place as they should have been. It's just that the 50s and 60s using the terracotta pipe, a lot of them were in the shape they need to be rehabbed. So area 3, we have already construction is going on in this Prestonia area. It's approximately 16,000 linear feet of sewer repair and 80 manholes. And the majority of the work, you guys have probably seen it out there, is that it's without, our attempt is to repair everything without digging, so we line the sewer lines, and once the sewer lines are lined and that cures, it's a new plastic pipe. So it's a really good way of getting some of the sewers completed. In areas 4 and 5, we have actually completed all the rehab work. There's over 5,000, a little over 5,000 foot of sewers that were repaired in area 4 and 5, and about 4,000 in area 4. And just to date, we have lined in these 3 areas or repaired almost 5 miles of sewer. So the next stages is the Camp Taylor area, which is areas 1A and 1B. We're going to replace approximately 19,000 linear feet of sewer and 92 manholes, and the construction is scheduled to begin this September. I've been informed by staff in the back that a lot of consent release forms have actually been sent out, and we're waiting for customers to come back, and the consent release forms gives us permission to do the disconnections and improvements on their property. So I know that's ongoing, and it's scheduled to be completed by the end of June 2015. And then construction is ongoing in areas 1B, which is about almost 8,000 linear feet of new sewer. And that's scheduled to be completed by the end of next April. Areas 2A and 2B, it's currently under design with construction to begin approximately March of next year, 2015, and a completion of March 2017. It's a large area. And then areas 2B, which is another 15,000 feet of new sewer, and rehab approximately 13,000 feet of sewer, is also to begin next March 2015 with a completion date of 2017. And we are under a federal mandate, so all work, we hope to have it done sooner, the plan is to have it done sooner, but all work will have to be done by December 2017. So, in moving forward, I'll move on to the next part of the presentation, which is talking about the Nightingale Pump Station and CSO Storage Basin. I will communicate the existing addition, the original plan. I presented at the Camp Taylor Elementary School about this pump station about 1.5 years ago. We've got a little bit more additional information and a change in the plan. Talk about the changes and our path moving forward. And again, just like with all our projects, I want to emphasize, provide opportunity for input. We also have staff, the design group is in the back that is working on this Nightingale pump station. So whether you write a question down on a card or if you want to go talk to them individually after all the presentations, they are here to help. So many of y'all may not know, in the end of Camp Taylor, as you move away from Poplar Level Road, there is a 27 MGD pump station. It's one of the larger sewer pump stations in our service area. And I just want to emphasize is that sometimes I have questions, is this a flood pump station? This is strictly a sanitary sewer CSO pump station. It handles what gets into the sewer pipes, and we send it off to our Morris Former treatment plant to be treated. This is not for drainage or flood protection. It's about 24,000 acres. It's a large service area. It diverts 2 of our larger interceptors, the Beargrass Interceptor and the Beargrass Interceptor Relief. It also serves the Camp Taylor and surrounding neighborhoods. And then where this station is a little different, this is far out. Typically we don't have the combined system out in this area, but we do have some CSO reliefs. This is the reasoning for our consent decree project, is there is a CSO associated. It's a permitted outfall that when it rains, but it is combined sewer that goes into the creek. Just real quick, this is, if you haven't seen it, this is the pump station. It's a square building that's above grade. When we are done with this project, that building will no longer be there. And then going into it, the property that, just the plan view, this is the pump station, and then there is the CSO that's associated with Beargrass Creek that discharges during the wet weather events. So to talk about the service area just real quick, you've seen this 1,000 times, it's all over the room. Just want to emphasize that this is, part of it is the Camp Taylor, it goes through the Camp Taylor Interceptor. So all 5 of the service areas that we are working on flows northeast to this pump station. The star is where the pump station is located in Nightingale Road. And just to talk about the magnitude also of this pump station, the other side of the service area, the larger interceptors I talked about, is this large service area. So it's, here's Shelbyville Road, the borders in 64. This is a large service area that comes down, and this is the pump station on the east side of it. So it is a significant pump station in size. So the original plan is what was submitted in MSD's IOAP was to replace the 27 MGD pump station with a new 60 MGD. So the thought process is as the flow comes in, all this excess flow, let's pump as much as we can to treat at Morris Foreman. That required a new force main, and that's significant to the neighborhood because the existing force main, 57, 80 linear feet, we would have to construct all the way up Nightingale Road and through neighborhoods and stuff. So that's could have been a potential impact to the neighborhood. And then the improvements would have been at the existing site, and that had a completion date of 2016. Well, we got into integrating and reviewing and calibrating and fine-tuning and fine-designing everything, and what we concluded is that we could replace that 60 million gallon pump station with a smaller 33 million gallon pump station that will handle it, and then associate it with 7.7 million gallons of offline storage, which would be on the site. It would be a sewer gravity and pumped out station, and what this will do is this will allow the additional flows at CSO 18, and for a typical year we can control the flows where we have 0 overflows for a typical year. And the big benefit that this project is that we can do everything on the existing pump station site, and it eliminated that long force main and that construction through the neighborhood. This is the existing site, and what I've done is we're going to stay within the existing site. And please note that we are at an early design phase, so everything is very preliminary. But in general, this is the existing pump station building. It will go away. There will be a new building. I've drawn it a little oversized just so everybody can see it, but it'll be approximately the same size as the existing building, but a little smaller. And then there will be a storage basin that'll be underground. So pretty much only anything anybody will see will be the new pump station control building. Not much different than what's already there today. A quick, again, draft plan. This is just going a little bit more detail, talking about there will be a road that'll access all sides of the pump station. But again, we're talking about the existing building, replacing it with a similar building. All that's there will be taken away. And then I just put a dashed red line showing that that is actually the underground storage basin. So what you'll see is, and I just tried to put green in there showing that that is intended to be grass. And then again, very preliminary, but we're already thinking ahead. What should we do as we get with the neighborhood and we continue our design? We've already started thinking about somehow we could landscape this. This will be the landscaping plan. Again, the same layout profile, the building that'll be showed, but then we got trees and different things that we can go out there and try to screen this facility and work with the neighborhood. We also, if you're curious what the building, this is a proposed rendering of what the building would look like. Again, 30%. We are still accepting input from everybody, but try to put something in there that's a little more aesthetic. It's that old building that's there today is an older design brick building. This would be a little bit more aesthetic. We could go out, work at it, and we work with the neighborhood and get some input. Just another size of it. So this is just some idea of what we're talking about putting out on site. So moving forward, we are complete with planning, so we're ready to move forward with the project. Preliminary design is complete. We know basically what we need to do and what is needed out on site. We plan to have final design complete by September, advertise for construction in October, and construction will start 1st of 2015. And this project has a consent decree deadline of December 31st, 2016, so it will be done before that. As I said several times during this presentation, input is very important. We kind of want to come with you guys is that a lot of times I get a lot of feedback that MSD already has our mindset, we know what we're going to do. It's not exactly a clean slate that we're starting with, but we do want to emphasize that it is important to get your all's feedback. That's why we have these meetings. So please get with staff. We can talk about things. You can provide your input. If you want to think about it, there's still plenty of time. We will have several different phases of the design where there'll be more time for input. We want to talk about the concepts, maybe get some information about the site layout of the building aesthetics, etc. If you do not want to talk today, if you want to take a little bit of time, maybe get some thoughts together and talk a little bit more, We would also like any input you have today on both projects to be presented or sent to MSD by July 17th, 2014. I'm going to leave this up as I finish my presentation, but here is a email address for your comments, and there's also a mail address for comments. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Mr. Heitzman to end our presentation.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'm very proud. The more input we get, the better decisions we can make. A couple of reminders before we answer some of these questions is one, we have these yellow sheets, and we're always trying to improve the process. If you think we did a good job, let us know. If you think we need some improvements, give us suggestions. If you think we did a terrible job, let us know. Again, we're trying to make efficient use of time to get information out to folks. So essentially, we ask you to fill this out. If you fill this out, when you leave, you get an MSD poncho for when it's raining. So, essentially, on the way out, that's the exchange. Now, here's what we're doing, and John, I'm going to ask you for a favor.
Sure.
I'm tackling a couple of questions on the front end. John's got a few. Go over to see Angela, John, because the tough questions we gave for John, I'm taking the easy one. He's going to review those. So we kind of group these. I bet we've got 50 of these, which is great input for us to be able to respond to the concerns of folks. And so what I'm going to do is go through a couple, and I'm going to group some of these because a lot of these questions are very similar, and so we're not going to go through every one. We'd be here for a long period of time. We're going to go to about 7:30 and then try to wrap this up. And again, if we have lots of more questions, we can always have a supplemental meeting. I thought I'd first open up with the first question is, I want contact info for two people in charge. Who do I call when there's a snafu, and who is the boss of the person above? And I thought,
that was my question.
There we go. So you start from the top. That would be me. And my name is Greg Heitzman, Heitzman. I'm executive director of Louisville Metropolitan Sewer District. You might used to know me when I was over at the Louisville Water Company. I was president. Now I'm at MSD full time. And my phone number is 502, but local number 540-6533. So when any one of my staff or any one of our contractors are not doing their job, you give me a call.
I will.
That's the answer to the first one. But the second part, this is a complex question. The second part is excessive noise. Will we pay for migraine meds? I love to open it up. So we'll work with you and suggest Advil, but we do ask your patience. Nothing in life comes easy. The third part is, will workers, now this is a serious question, need to come into my home? And typically the answer is no, but there's always the issue of everybody in today's day and age is concerned about home safety. So if you are ever approached at your door and someone knocks on your door and says that they're working for MSD or representing MSD, what you need to do is ask for an identification. If I'm doing my job, my identification is right here. And so that is an MSD ID card. And so you always have the ability, if someone will not show you their MSD identification, then do not let them into your home. Now, that should be an exception, like say there's an emergency or we have to knock on the door and say, because we're doing construction, our contractor may come up and you can say, who are you represent? They might say our contractor. They shouldn't need to come into your home unless it is an emergency situation. Still, what you would do, if they say you're an MSD contractor, you would say, I would like to talk to an MSD representative, because someone in today's day and age could be trying to fool you to try to get into the home and take advantage of a situation. The work that we're doing is going to be all out in the right-of-way, but we are going to be connecting and reconnecting sewer lines and drain lines that will be in the area. So there could be a scenario that we're disrupting service and we want to let you know what's going on. So there could be a knock on the door, but it would be a rare exception that we would need to come into your home. And if we need to come into your home, again, ask for an ID. And if you are still threatened, you can respectfully close the door and dial 911 as an emergency. And so I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that, because that's a very serious question. Okay, so second, there's 2 or 3 here that are related to charges. And so here's a question, will there be a charge to me for the new private line to connect to your new main line in Indiana Avenue? Well, really this applies to everybody along the route. We're coming in and putting new sewer lines out in the right of way or in the street. And part of this project cost is to pay for that reconnection. So we're going to reconnect your existing sewer line and disassemble it from where it's currently connected and reconnect it to the sewer line that's essentially out in the street or out in the right of way. And that will be at the cost of MSD. Now we're all paying for this, as Angela mentioned earlier, with the consent decree charge on your water bill. There's an EPA fee. It's about $8 a month. So literally we're all paying for it, but there will not be a separate connection fee that you have to pay or have to pay your plumber. We will make the reconnections out at the street. Now what could happen is we could get into the situation and you have an old clay pipe, or when we're reconnecting, that we find that there are roots in your lines or your clay pipes have failed. And it may be that we have to have you contact a plumber if it's up on your private property. And then we can work with you if you want to take out the program that we offer at MSD to refinance your line, or you could call a plumber to be able to clear that line out. But if it's all right out at the property line or the right-of-way connection, that is included in the project cost, and all of us collectively throughout Jefferson County are paying that. And essentially it's roughly $8 a month. That's what this is being financed with. So that's a question. Another question is, does my coverage from Louisville Water Company, so I'm curious, does anybody have coverage from Louisville Water Company, the Home Service Protection Program? You've got lots of good questions. What's your name, ma'am? Andrea. Okay, Andrea's got lots of questions, but a couple of people raised their hands. So you may have the water service line coverage. It's the water line from the meter to your home. Now this wouldn't impact theirs. If there is damage to that water line for some reason, then MSD or its contractor will get the water company to fix it. It will not impact you. You also may have the sewer line protection between essentially the street and your home. And what you should do is that if we're going to take care of everything, if we find out that there is a clog or a barrier or a blockage on the line and you have that, you would be able to call that insurance program and they will come out and do that repair on your private line. And again, if you don't have that offering, you could take out the optional MSD replacement program, or if you have an immediate need, you would contact a plumber and they'll give you a price. We always recommend get 3 quotes, get a licensed plumber to come out and be able to give you three quotes, and then you choose who you think is the best to be able to actually do the unclogging of the sewer line itself. So that's another private property question. MSD covering the cost on the public side. What about the private side? Essentially, I think a little bit redundant, but we are covering all the cost on the public side, and on the private side, that is your responsibility. But if it is right there at the interconnection, say you have to have a tree right there at the connection, and we're a couple of feet either side of that, we're going to take care of it while we're there. We're not going to fix part of it and leave the clog for you. But if that clog and tree roots go all the way up into your yard, it's going to be a responsibility for the homeowner. Okay? Next question is, who will pay to move a storm drain on my property from the sewer line? Okay, this gets a little more complex. This is a sewer project. It is not a stormwater project. So we're going to have to look at these on a case-by-case basis. There may be something that, because of the complications, we'll step in and pay for that with our contractor to disconnect the storm line. But if it's something more complex with your downspouts, we may come back and say, you have to take care of that. And then we also have a program to disconnect your downspouts and your sump pumps, and that information is out at the table. So the storm line, again, the storm water is the water coming off your roof, your driveway, your basement, etc. That will be done on a case-by-case basis. So we can't guarantee that we'll take care of every storm, and the reason is that this is consent decree project is a sewer replacement project, not a storm. And what we're doing, we're separating the two projects together. Okay, next is there a charge to the customer? I think we covered that. There's no direct charge. You're not going to be billed by MSD, but again, we're all paying for it with that consent decree at $8 a month, and that's funding the entire program, the $850 million program. And then the final one that they gave me is, last year, while your employees were checking homes for where exit pipes were located, one of your employees tracked mud onto brand new carpet in home that you own less than 2 weeks. That's not very good. That's not good customer service. And will you be...
Question, are you coming into my house?
Okay, well, one, we should not come into the home. Two, if you ever have a situation, everybody now has, not everybody, but many people have a phone that you can take a picture with or a camera. If you ever have something, because what we always get into is who did what, if you ever have a situation like that, take a picture of it and essentially we'll provide you the information because we should not have damaged your carpet. Essentially, that would be treated as a claim. And hopefully the individual apologized because we should not have ruined your carpet going into your home.
We apologize, but I don't have to start the mud.
So if you would have a situation like that, try to be smart on the front end, ask for the ID. Second is that if you have muddy shoes on, what are you going to do to be able to prevent the mud from coming in the home? And then third, if they are in any way not cooperative, essentially ask them respectfully for the name because they've already told you their ID, etc. And then you call Greg Heitzman at 540-6533. You got it.
She's my neighbor, so I'll get that number.
We've got a good tag. What street are you on?
Belmar.
Belmar. You got a good tag team on Belmar. Okay, John, do you want to go next? Maybe you got some. We got another packet of questions, and
Sure.
And I'll go out and get the other ones that have to go to the boss here. We'll kind of tag team here. I think because the camera want to roll right over here. John's going to cover kind of the project-specific type questions.
I have more general questions. I have more generic or general questions. A lot of these are pretty simple. If testing for sewer leaks, is it possible for smoke to get inside the house? Yes. There's two possible ways for that. One, there's a defect in the sanitary sewer system which is causing that to get to the house. What's probably more common is that there are P-traps on people's homes. When we do our smoke testing, we try to put door hangers out, and we tell people to go around. They may have a bathroom or a floor drain that they haven't used in a while, and we tell them to pour a cup of water in their P-traps or floor drains, or go flush a toilet, or go run water in that second bathroom that's hardly ever used. But it is possible. That is why we do the smoke testing, because we're trying to find out, is there a defect in the sewer that's causing a problem? We can correct it, or is it just a matter of does the check valve help keep the smoke out? No, typically that's the P-trap. If the sewer is constructed right, then the P-trap, it holds water. It's a little U-pipe under the sink, if you're familiar with it, and it holds water so that the sewer gases don't come back in and you smell the sewer gases. Sewer overflows, do we contact MSD or Metropolitan to report covers loose in the street? You call MSD and it's the 587-0603 number. And to me, it's easier just to remember Metro call, which is 311. You dial that, then you get the different for Louisville Water Company for MSD. Does MSD have photographs of the smoke testing that was done per property? Yes. Whoever asked that question, if you want to, specific information about that, you get with any one of the staff in the back. And actually, you can get with Andrea Rogers. She's waved her hand back there. She helps me with the SSCS projects, and yes, that's how we document it. We take photos so that we can come back and know where the problem was. I didn't know where the runoff from my gutters are going. Will MSD come out and let me know? I don't know. Whoever asked that question, anyone of the gentlemen in the back, we can come out and go inspect your property, give you some information, help you out on that one. And it is Nightingale Road on the old or new system. It is on the existing system that's out there, so I'm going to say it's on the old system. What about excessive water runoff on property causing soil erosion? Or put property who is responsible for solving the issue? As Greg stated, it sounds to me like this is, without knowing all the details, this is a drainage request. We'd be happy to get with customer service. They're right out here in the hallway, and they can take all your information and then have an MSD people come back and look at it. I don't know a lot of other details to answer that, but we'd be happy to come out and look at that and hopefully try to give you an answer. And then they have a manhole in the back of the property. Who is responsible for maintaining that? That is MSD. If it is in an easement, a big problem with a lot of the situations going on at Camp Taylor is that a lot of the sewers aren't in easements, but we still have the responsibility of that, and just working with the homeowners if we have to go back there and maintain it. And that's a That's the typical maintenance of the sewer if there's a problem with it structurally or if it needs to be cleaned or corrected. They have those sump pumps. My gutters are empty into the sewer. Basically, the same question is that just curious about. They don't have a sump pump, and if you have any questions about where your gutter is empty, everything should empty into a drainage system. And then, as I stated in the presentation, what we try to do is when we do disconnections, we fully know that a lot of reasons downspouts are tied in or sump pumps are tied in is because they would discharge next to the house, go into the ground, get pumped next to the house, and there's a vicious cycle. We try to do the best we can to take that sump pump discharge and pipe it out to the roadway or put it into an existing drainage system so that you don't have that situation. So where we do the proper disconnections, we look at the existing drainage and try to make sure that we're not causing a problem. The last thing we want to do is that disconnect the sump pump and then it's causing backyard or issues with the house. And that's pretty much the ones I have. You want to come in? And I'm going to give you to the project manager, Christian.
My name is Christian Miller. I also go by Wolfie if I've introduced myself to you before. I have a few of these that are really geared towards project area 1 and 2. To start out, traffic disruption. How do we plan to coordinate this work in the areas of Poplar Level, Trevilian, and Illinois with traffic interruptions resulting from zoo special events? On all our projects, we have to get maintenance traffic plans prepared and run that through Public Works to make sure that they are aware of what's going on. We work with Fire Department, EMS, and the Board of Education to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, and we have been okayed to do work in that area. We don't really anticipate too many road closures, but if that does happen, then everybody should be fairly well aware. What happens when basements leak after new sewers are installed? If this is a problem that's directly related to our construction, we will respond to that complaint and we'll go through and we can verify that it was a result of construction and not an existing problem that we're just trying to get MSD to pay for. So we will absolutely work with the contractor to repair that if we find that it's due to the construction that occurred. I have a driveway by Algar Concrete. If my drive is tore up, can I have Algar Concrete repair, and who have Algar repair this concrete, and who pays for it? If not, is my drive going to look as nice as when MSD gets done? Our contractor will be the one who does that initial concrete repair. If for some reason there's a defect in it or it's wrong, then we will come back and try to repair that. We typically wouldn't have Algar pay for it, but if there's a substantial problem, then we might entertain that idea on a case-by-case basis.
I'm sorry, just to add on to that one, because a lot of people who have been told that their driveways are going to be torn up to get this done, including myself. If you have a concrete flat driveway, patching it's not going to be good as repairing it. So are we looking at more patches or repairs?
It'll be...
Patches or replacements, rather.
If we go down your driveway, what we do is we'll do a saw cut at an existing joint typically and replace that driveway, in most cases, the entire width, all the way back to the point where we stop the construction. Now, we won't be doing a trench repair where there's going to be a line in the middle of the driveway, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So like the whole slab will be replaced in sections where you torn it up.
Yes.
Thank you.
How long do you plan to spend on each residence? In other words, how long will I not have use of my driveway? We have committed to have work on your property completed in less than 30 days. That's from when they step on your property to install this new property service connection by the time they get off of it. As far as how long you're going to be inconvenienced for not use of your driveway, we hope that we can limit that, but we can also work with you directly to accommodate a time where you're going to be out of the house, maybe at work, to get that done. That really be limited on a case-by-case basis. I can't give a total blanket answer for that. There's a second question on there. Between my driveway and sidewalk, I have quite a bit of concrete likely to be destroyed in this process. Will it be patched or replaced? If we're going through that, then we will replace it for the area that we're digging through. Like I said, typically joint to joint. The public sewer line runs under the basement in some houses. How and when will these problems be addressed? How long will the process take? And we, like John had mentioned in the presentation, we'll be abandoning those sewers as we find them and replacing them with a new sewer out in the street. As far as the duration of that, the whole project is going to take a couple of years, but how long you'll be inconvenienced will vary. I've got several questions here about stormwater in Camp Taylor. Greg kind of emphasized this is a sanitary sewer project and not necessarily a stormwater project. If we are going to create some sort of problem in a low area by disconnecting all these downspouts and sump pumps, and we're trying to take a look at that, we're also trying to look at existing customer service requests, make sure that we're not compounding a problem. If we can find an easy solution and do that as part of this project, we will try to do that. And I have several more questions that relate to the time frame for construction in Area 1A. Construction will begin before the end of this year, and it'll probably go through all of next year. So as far as when you will be inconvenienced in particular, we will have a pardon our dust meeting before that construction begins, and hope to have a schedule by that time, and we can give you a better idea at that time. So that's all of my questions.
Okay, a couple things out in the hall. Some other folks gave us some good pointers. You may have a situation where ultimately after we come through, we're doing construction, this is heavy construction, and you may feel that we've damaged your property in some way. So let's say the sidewalk gets damaged and we only repair a portion of it, and we leave a portion in shambles, cracked, as an example. Well, that would be a claim against us. And then we essentially would turn around with our contractor, because we hold our contractor, they have insurance, and we'd hold our contractor accountable. So if you have a situation, especially if you have right now a driveway that is all concrete cracks, sooner or later, but let's say you just poured an exposed aggregate driveway in the last couple of years, and it's nice and new looking, I would suggest you take some pictures of it and take a video of it and have it date stamped, because that is your best protection, because we have many people in this world that would like to take advantage. They'd like us to be able to replace the entire driveway all the way back to the garage and around the side and around the back front. And we'd love to do that, but then what happens is essentially we chew up all the money dealing with those issues that everybody pays in Jefferson County for a new driveway, and then we don't have money to be able to finish the program. Then we got to raise everybody's rates. So the best way that if you, another example for Beechwood Village that we had is we had individuals that claimed that we had basement leakage before. They had a dry basement before, but after we came through and made the improvements, that something changed, and as a result of that, there was water in the basement. Well, let's say you have a dry basement. Do the best you can to document that. You know, if you're concerned about your foundation, the contractors in the front doing work, you know, you could, if you have exposed walls, you could take a quick video. That's the best way to protect. You know, 10 years ago, that would be very expensive. It would cost a lot of money to go in. But with today's technology, essentially inexpensive camera or a mobile smartphone, you could take and be able to protect your interests. Because otherwise what will happen is a claim will come in, and we'll ask you for the supporting documentation in order to be able to attempt to settle the claim in one way. So the more documentation you have, especially anything with concrete in it, the better off you would be. In order to be able to have it that actually documented. Then when you come to the table and it's date stamped, we're in a much better position. You know, you're correct. You've got a photo here that's shown in June 17th, 2014, that you had a brand new exposed aggregate and there wasn't a crack in it. And now it's in shambles as a result. And who was here and who wasn't, we have a much better position for us to go to our contractor and be able to resolve that. So take advantage of the technology today to be able to protect your property, and also take advantage that others won't take advantage collectively of all of this. So that's a kind of a tip on the tail end. So essentially we're winding up here at 7:30. I think, any other questions that came back in?
Do you mind if I clarify a couple things? Well, a couple of points of clarification for the Camp Taylor project in particular. If you've had somebody already come in your home to find the basement, to find the existing plumbing facilities, then there is a chance that they would come back in your home to either do work interior. We're trying not to do that. We would do most of our work on the outside of the house whenever possible. So there is a chance that they might ask to enter your home again, but that would not be for everybody. And then as far as the cost for the new property service connection that will be installed as far as the Camp Taylor project, if we are abandoning your existing sewer system out front or even out back and putting a new sewer main in, and we have committed to replace your property service connection, then that will be as part of this project cost. So that will not be an additional cost to the property owner.
And again, we reiterated earlier, anytime someone comes and wants to get into your home, what do? You ask them for the MSD ID to make sure that we keep our community safe. So with that, kind of the final reminder, we'll wrap up. We'll be around here for a few extra minutes if anybody has any one-on-one questions. But we'd really appreciate if we're doing a good job, tell us. If improvements, tell us. And essentially, we can make it better the next time we come up. Thank you so much.